Hi everyone, my name is Wesley Schultz, Music Director of Auburn Symphony. I am coming to you with our last and final episode of our Symphony Sundays. All summer long, we've been bringing you all sorts of great music pulled from our vaults or from our archives. So we brought you music from the first season and all the way up to music that we performed just this last February. So today will be the very last video before we begin our 2020-2021 season. Now, of course, this season looks quite a bit different than we initially announced back in April, but the music has not stopped. We are still making music. We are committed to bringing music back to a live audience when it is safe to do so. But in the meanwhile, I am so excited about all that we're going to bring you this fall. As I speak right now, we have musicians that are rehearsing, that are planning, and that are getting ready to record for you some wonderful music that will be brought to you week by week throughout the entire fall season, all the way up until the new year. So I promise you, and I am so excited that we have got some really great programs in store for you. But first, today, we're going to bring you the last Symphony Sunday release from our vaults, and the performance comes from back in April 2006, about 9-10 years into the life of the Auburn Symphony. And we're going to bring to you the finale, the last movement of Beethoven's Symphony Number 9. Now, this work is significant for many, many reasons. I think a lot of people have personal connections to this music. Maybe they've heard the music used in pop culture and movies and TV or advertisements throughout their lives. Or maybe there's a certain event that people are drawn to. Maybe they heard a certain performance that really resonated with them. That's, I think, one of the most lasting impacts of this work. Now, Beethoven 9, it came 12 years after his previous two symphonies. So if you joined us in the audience back in February, we performed Beethoven's 7th Symphony. The 7th and the 8th Symphony were written about the same time. But then there was a 12-year gap before he gave to us his 9th Symphony. Now, a lot of things were happening in his life then. Beethoven had a lot of struggles, internal and external. He struggled with finding love, or deciding what love is. He struggled over the guardianship of his nephew Carl, and he also struggled for decades with the slow deterioration of his hearing. So when we get to this 9th Symphony in about 1822-24, he's also wrestling with, what do I do next? What do I do in this next symphony of mine? Because remember, he's always an inventive composer. So he was really wrestling with this question of what should I do next? Where do I push the genre of the symphony? And he had in his mind that he wanted to introduce voices to the genre of the symphony. Now, we've had voices with orchestra before, oratorios, of course, masses, lots of liturgical music, but voices had not yet been in a symphonic work, a work just meant for the stage. We didn't yet have the human voice introduced to the orchestra. And so he was wrestling with, how do I do this? Because I want to do this. There's a message I want to convey, and I want to include the intonation of the human voice in my music. That's what he was wrestling with. So in the finale, the very opening that you're going to hear is this cataclysm of noise. And we're not sharing the third movement with you, but at the very end of the third movement, it is some of this most beautiful music. So what he's doing at the opening of the finale is he's completely disturbing the piece on purpose. Then, the cellos and basses take on an operatic role. Music from the first movement, the second movement, and the third movement is all brought back, and the cellos and basses make commentary on it. And that commentary is that of rejection. Music from the first movement comes, the cellos respond angrily, no, that's not it. Music from the second movement comes, a scherzo, and they reject that, no, that's not it. So what we see here is this sort of very much acting out in music, and much in the way of opera. And this, I think, is key to how Beethoven decides to introduce the voices. But there's a moment, a couple minutes in, where the woodwinds outline something new, and the cellos are like, that's interesting. And their tone softens, and that anger falls away. And soon, we get that new tune, the Ode to Joy melody, outlined by the winds and then taken over softly by the strings, and it grows and grows until we get the full presentation of that theme. And shortly after that, the voices enter. So what Beethoven does here is ingenious. He introduces voices in the operatic way in a symphonic genre. It's marvelous. Now, the text was written by Friedrich von Schiller, and Beethoven really took this not really great poem and made it his own. He adapted it, and he actually just rewrote and rearranged it to fit his needs. It's not the best piece of poetry, but I don't think that's what matters. I think what matters is that Beethoven found what he needed inside these words. The phrases, "all men are made brothers," resonated with him. And some of the last words, "be embraced, ye millions, this kiss to the whole world." These are words that resonated with Beethoven, and I think they resonate a lot with us today and all that we're struggling with in our world and our society. I hope you enjoy this performance from back in April 2006. This is the Auburn Symphony Orchestra with the Federal Way Chorale led by Don Barrows, and our vocal soloists are Catherine Height, Emily Lund, Wesley Rogers, and Eric Parch. Thank you for being with us, and I look forward to seeing you this fall.